All right, now it's time to add some shelf holes to our cabinet sides. Now that we understand a little bit more about programming, we're going to move through this hopefully a little bit more fluently, but I am doing this as we go, so I may make a mistake or two along the way. So we're going to come into the main settings, and knowing what we now know that we are going to set up some layer names, I'm just doing a copy here, and I'm going to call this shelf hole. Layer name, and then we are going to give the variable if I haven't mentioned before, variables cannot have any spaces. They have to be continuous letter. And to keep consistent, we are also going to dimension it up top to know that this is all of the variable names that we're going to be using within our scripts. So all the variables that we have here are global variables to all the files that we have open. Once that is set, we're going to come over into our base sides. Going to scroll down and create a new subroutine. And I might even call that base shelf holes. You might have one for wall cabinets that might be a little bit different, so it's nice to keep things separate. So we now have a subroutine that we will be able to use for creating our shelves. So at the beginning, we're going to go through and set up a couple of variables. We know we're going to need to use the X and the Y. So once you get going, a lot of it is really starting to be a copy and paste to get everything moving along quicker. So here we're going to set up a few settings and variables right up front. We need to know the hole spacing. By default, we'll set that to be 1.25 inches. Set front, we'll call that 2. And I'll come back and rename the variables as we go. I'm just creating the settings text here from back, and then we'll need a distance from top and bottom. All right, so we will set up, and I'm going to pretty much name the variables the same as what we have there, although, as I said, we can't have any spaces, so I use underscores frequently, and I will go distance front. And remember, variables are just made up word. The distance from the bottom, we're going to increase that a little bit because we have our toe kick height, which we could get more complicated in the variables and bring the toe kick height variables into the routine down here, but we're just going to keep it simple and say that we want it up generally 6 inches from the top, and we're going to go 3 inches down from there. So with that done, just a little bit of housekeeping to make sure we have all of our made up variables dimensioned at the top. And again, that's just nice to know when you look at the subroutine to see right at the top what variables are going to be used within the routine. Not all languages require this. This is VB scripting is one of them, that the program and the script will still work even if you do not have the dimensioned variables at the top. So now that we have all the variables that I think we're going to need, actually I think we need one more. And we're going to need to have a variable to know what is the total number of holes that we are going to have in this side. So to get the total number of holes, we need to do a little bit of math. So we're going to use this total holes, and we're going to say that it is equal to, let's say, from the part X, and we are going to subtract the distance from the top and subtract the distance from the bottom. Then we will need to divide that by the total height. So we have our part X total, subtracting the distance from the top, the distance from the bottom, and I put that in parentheses because we want that to be calculated first before we do a division by the whole spacing. So this is going to give us the total number of holes that fit inside of this total distance here. We are going to use one more variable up here, that is the I to be used into the for loop, that we will then use the total holes. So we will go for I equals 0 to total of holes, and we will go next. And I'm going to put a comment down there for I. So if I like doing that when we have nested loops, that we're more easily able to see what next goes to what loop. So we are now ready to create our holes within this spacing here. And to do so, we're going to grab this data right here. We don't need that comment. We have one more variable or one more parameter of the XYZ that we need to use, and that is the radius. And we're going to give that a default of 0.197 divided by 2. 197 is the 5 millimeter, and it is the radius, so that should be it. Next thing we need to do is add that hole to our drawing by part add circle and then XYZ shelf holes. So currently we are getting a hole placed. If we run this, we're going to get the total number of holes directly on top of one another. And let's just see where we are, see if we've done anything wrong. So if we go up to Tools and Nest, we should at least see what one circle anyway. Actually, we're not going to see it all because we're not making a call to the shelf holes. I'm going to go back up into the back side after it does the cutout perimeter cuts, and then we have the shelf holes. We'll save, and now hopefully we will get And we did get our one hole or our multiple holes drawn directly on top of one another. We need to change that to get them arrayed in a pattern. So coming back into our for loop, we're going to use this I, the counter, to start multiplying the hole spacing. So we want the x value to be the distance from the top plus I times the hole spacing. Then for the y value, we are going to say distance from the front change that depth from 7.5 to 0.5. We will save. Now hopefully we will get at least one row of holes along the front edge of the base cabinet. So there we are. We just now need to add another set for the back row. And again, should be fairly easy to do now that we have this one working. We're just going to make a duplicate copy of that. And the only thing we need to change is the y value. So the y value is going to be out to the width or the height in the y direction, and we are going to subtract the variable from distance back. We will save. And I see I put our asterisk on top, but not on the bottom, and save. So now hopefully we will get 2 rows of holes. And again, hopefully in the settings, we will have settings to be able to control some of our spacing. So I'm going to increase the distance from the top because that looks a little too close to the top, and I'm going to increase it from the bottom. We'll save those settings, tools, and nest. So that is looking pretty good. We could always add a third row in the center if we wanted to for base cabinets, or we could even go more in depth and put a conditional statement here that says any cabinet that is greater than 24 in the y direction, add another set of holes. But to just add the third set of holes, we are going to copy this row, and I'm going to put it right in the center in between these two. And I want it to be exactly halfway. So I'm going to take the part Y, divide it by 2. Come back into nest. We now have a third row of shelf holes. So hopefully that helps in creating the for loop that is able to multiply out an array of holes for shelving. So if you have followed through all of this series, you should now know how to continue on creating dados and creating geometry for other parts. I will continue with the videos and follow up on the scripting, but I will get a little bit more quick with it and not be explaining as much detail as we go along.